The wound was not the problem. Davin Cole had seen worse. A metal panel had caught him across the forearm during an unloading job. A clean slice, deep enough to need attention, not deep enough to slow him down. He had wrapped it with cargo tape for 2 hours, finished the job, docked his ship at Oruval Station, and then walked calmly to the medical bay on the 3rd floor and sat down on the nearest bench without being asked. He had brought a cup of something warm from the dispensary in the corridor. He drank it while he waited. The station was quiet at this hour. Long white corridors, soft blue lighting, the kind of place that smelled like recycled air and antiseptic and something faintly floral. That was probably engineered to calm patients down. It was working on everyone in the waiting area except Davin, who did not need calming. He was just tired and wanted stitches and then a few hours of sleep. Before his next haul departed at dawn, the healer who came to see him was a Mai. Davin had met a few, tall and slender, fingers too long, skin that glowed in shifting patterns depending on mood. This one had pale gold light running along his jaw and up behind his ears. His name tag read Drive.Civil. He looked at Davin the way a careful technician looks at a machine he hasn't encountered before. Not rude, just precise, human, Civil said, pulling up a display pad. Last time I checked, Davin said. Civil's light patterns shifted briefly, not quite a smile, but something in that neighborhood. He noted the wound, noted Davin's name and ship registration, and then reached for the full body scanner on the wall. A wide flat panel that most species stood in front of for 2 or 3 seconds, while it swept top to bottom and produced a clean readout. Davin stood in front of it. The scanner ran. 2 seconds passed, then 3, then 6. Civil glanced up. The machine was still running, its progress bar moving slowly, the way it moved when it encountered something complicated. The small insectoid nurse, who had appeared silently at Civil's side, her name tag read Plek, watched the bar with her antenna pointing straight up. 8 seconds. 9. A soft chime. Then an alert code on the readout screen. A yellow triangle. 11 seconds total. Civil looked at the display. His skin light dimmed to almost nothing, which Davin had already learned meant the doctor was thinking hard. The readout was 4 pages long. Most species produced 1. Civil worked through the readout in silence. He started at the top and read carefully, the way a person reads something. They want to get right rather than fast. The flags appeared one by one as he scrolled. Iron-based. Hemoglobin. An unusual notation beside it. No known equivalent in any carbon-based species of similar mass. Skeletal density flagged. The system had compared it to 17 different species and found no close match. Healed microfractures, 14 distinct sites, all fully repaired. None currently active. Soft tissue scarring across multiple locations, consistent with repeated physical trauma over a long period of time. And then, at the bottom, in the trace chemical analysis section, a line Civil read twice. Distributed iron deposits, systemic, not localized to blood, present in soft tissue boundaries. Source dietary. Civil looked up from the display. Davin was rewrapping the cargo tape on his arm out of habit, the way a man does when he has been managing his own problems for long enough that help feels like a formality. You can stop doing that, Civil said. I will treat the wound properly. He paused. His light came back slightly, a steady, dim amber. He asked the next question carefully, the way someone asks a question when they already have a guess, but want to hear the answer out loud. What is the metal in your blood? Davin looked up. Iron. He said, iron. Civil repeated. Yeah, is that a problem? Civil looked back at the readout, then at Davin, then at the readout again. Plek had not moved. Her antennae were still pointing straight up. It is not a problem, Civil said slowly. It is simply not what I expected. What did you expect? Something simpler. Civil set the display down and picked up his medical kit. Most species your size use copper-based or vanadium-based blood chemistry. Iron is rare. It is heavy. It requires a specific kind of environment to be useful in that concentration. He began cleaning the wound, his 6 fingers moving with practiced speed. Your body carries a significant amount of it. We're built that way, Davin said. Yes, Civil said quietly. You are. He worked on the wound for a while without speaking. The cut was clean. The edges were already beginning to pull toward each other on their own, something Civil noticed, and did not comment on yet. He sealed it in 3 passes and pressed a thin bandage over the top. Then he sat back and looked at Davin with the full attention of someone who has just realized that a routine appointment is not routine at all. I would like to run a more detailed scan, he said. A manual examination. It would take longer. Davin shrugged. My next haul doesn't leave until tomorrow morning. Then you have time. I have time, Davin agreed. Outside the examination room, through the glass partition, 2 off-duty medical staff had appeared in the corridor. They were standing very still, holding things they were not actually using, looking anywhere except directly through the glass. Davin noticed them. He did not say anything. By the time Civil had Davin seated in examination room 4, with the full manual scanner ray deployed, there were 4 people outside the glass. A lab technician, 2 recovery nurses, and a species Davin did not recognize who appeared to be a patient herself, but had wandered over anyway. They all had something in their hands, clipboards, data pads, a cup of something warm. Props. Davin had seen soldiers hold weapons the same way, not to use them, just to have something to do with their hands while they watched. He let them watch. Civil moved through the examination the way a good engineer moves through a checklist. No rushing, no skipping, nothing out of sequence. He started with the bones. The density reader was a handheld tool, flat on one end, that he pressed against different points of the skeleton and read the resistance values on his pad. He started at the forearm, the uninjured one, and the tool gave him a number. He looked at it. He pressed the tool against the bone again. Same number, your skeletal density, Civil said carefully, is approximately twice the baseline reading for a species of your mass and height. Okay. Davin said, does your home world have elevated gravity? No. Pretty standard. Civil wrote something down. His skin light was doing the amber dimming thing again. He moved to the shoulder, the hand, the collarbone. Each reading came back in the same elevated range. When he got to Davin's left leg and pressed the tool against the thigh bone, the number was higher still. You have significant old impact damage here, Civil said. Healed, but the density at the repair site is greater than the surrounding bone. Yeah, that one broke pretty bad. Cargo loader fell on it a few years back, and you are walking on it normally. It healed. Civil looked at him. Human bone regenerates stronger at fracture sites. Usually. Yeah, that's what the doctors told me. Civil made a longer note this time. He moved through the full fracture count after that, methodical, patient, one by one. He would find a healed break, mark it, and then ask. Davin answered each one without much drama. Left wrist fell from a loading dock to ribs on the right side, compressed during a hull breach drill that went wrong. 3 fingers on the right hand, all at once, machinery accident. The left shoulder, the war, the small bones in his right foot, 2 of them. He had kept working for a week before anyone made him get them scanned. At fracture 9, Civil stopped asking and just listened. At fracture 12, Plek, who had come into the room quietly and was standing near the door with her data pad, made a small sound. Not a word, just a sound. She caught herself and went back to her notes. 14 fractures total, all fully healed, none causing any current complications. Civil set down the density reader. He was quiet for a moment in a way that had nothing to do with calculation, and everything to do with something he was trying to find words for. Does it hurt? He asked. The question was different from the others. It was not clinical. It was not part of the checklist. Davin looked at him. The arm? All of it, Civil said. Carrying all of this. The density. The old damage. The weight of it. He paused. Does it hurt? Davin was quiet for a second. Not because he didn't understand the question. Because he hadn't been asked before. You get used to it, he said. Civil ordered food. Plek moved before he finished the sentence. The medical lounge had 6 tables, a food dispenser on the far wall, and a window that looked out over the station's lower docking ring. Davin picked the table nearest the window out of habit, old cargo worker reflex. always know what is moving outside. He got something warm and beige from the dispenser that tasted roughly like rice if rice had never met seasoning. He ate it without complaint. Civil arrived 10 minutes later with his display pad and a tall drink of something green. He sat across from Davin and began reading immediately. Plek took a seat 2 tables away and opened her data pad at an angle that was obviously meant to look like she was doing her own work. For a while, the lounge was quiet. Then Civil said, without looking up, "Your stress hormone system. What about it? Adrenaline." Civil finally looked up. "In emergency situations, your body releases a chemical compound that increases physical output. Strength, speed. Pain suppression, yeah. Pain suppression. You stop feeling pain in emergencies." "Not stop," Davin said. "It gets quieter, like someone turned the volume down." Civil considered that. "And this is a biological function, not a trained response." "It's both. You can train for it, but the base system is just there, built in." Civil made a note. "And when the situation ends, then it comes back, usually harder." Civil wrote that down too. The questions kept coming, but not in a rush. Civil moved through topics the way he had moved through the examination, steady, ordered, nothing wasted. He asked about the ribs. Davin explained that he had finished a 2-day freight run before going to a doctor. Because the cargo contract had a penalty clause and the ribs were not his dominant side. Civil stopped writing and looked at him. Davin looked back. Neither of them said anything for a moment. Civil wrote something down and moved on. He asked about the war. Davin had mentioned it during the fracture count, just as context, not as a story. Now Civil asked directly, "What war? When? How long?" Davin gave him the short version. "Regional conflict. For years, engineering corps, mostly keeping vehicles and structures operational under fire." "How many such conflicts has your species had?" Civil asked. Davin thought about it. "Big ones, counting just the last few hundred years. A few major ones. Dozens of smaller ones, against outside forces, against each other, mostly." Civil was quiet. His light had gone a very steady. "Flat amber, you made war against your own species," he said. Repeatedly, Davin said, "Without pride, without shame, just fact, and you are still here, still here." From 2 tables away, Plek said very quietly, "Does it stop you?" Both Civil and Davin looked at her. She had not moved. Her antennae were pointed carefully at her data pad, but her eyes were on Davin. He turned the question over. He took it seriously. "No," he said. "It doesn't stop us. It slows some people down for a while, but it doesn't stop." "Why not?" she asked. He looked out at the docking ring below the window. A cargo hauler was moving slowly into position. Big ship, old model, hull plates patched in 3 different colors. "Because there's always something on the other side of it," he said. "Whatever you're scared of. Usually there's something you want more than you're scared, and you find out which one is stronger." Plek was quiet. She wrote something on her data pad. Davin suspected it was not medical notes. Civil looked down at his drink. He looked tired, but not in a bad way. More like a man who had been reading a very long book and had just reached the part where everything started to make sense. "I have been a healer for 19 years, he said. "I have treated over 60 species." He set the drink down. "I have never encountered a biological profile like yours. Not because it is the strongest or the most efficient." He paused. "Because it reads like a record. Everything in your body is evidence of something that happened and was survived." Davin looked at him. "Is that good or bad?" "I do not know yet," Civil said. "But it is extraordinary, and I do not think you realize it." Davin looked back at the window. The patched cargo hauler had settled into its dock. Somewhere on that ship, someone had fixed something that broke and kept going. He did not say anything. There was nothing to say. Civil worked late. The station had settled into its night rhythm. Shift changes. Soft ventilation hum. The amber glow of monitoring equipment in the empty ward. Civil was in his research office, at the end of the East Corridor, 3 hours into the Galactic Medical Archive. Not moving, his green drink had gone cold beside him. The Galactic Medical Institute kept contact archives going back several hundred years. every species that had made verified first contact, their initial medical scans, their crew manifests, the notes written by whatever station doctor had processed them. Most of these records were dry. The human file was 47 pages long. It had 3 separate flags attached to it from different review periods, each one noting the same thing in different language: anomalous, further study recommended, no follow-up conducted. Civil read the first contact records slowly. The first human crew to reach a neutral station had arrived in a ship listed in the docking registry as a modified commercial freighter, not a government science vessel, not a military ship, a modified freighter, the kind of ship you build when you do not have the budget for the kind of ship you want. The hull had been repaired in transit. The crew of 7 had all presented for basic medical intake: iron hemoglobin, dense bone, layered scar tissue. One crew member, female, 30s, listed occupation as navigator, had a stress fracture in her left foot. The examining doctor at the time had noted it in the file, asked about it, and recorded her response. She had been aware of it. It had happened 8 weeks prior. She had not wanted to delay departure. Civil sat back. 8 weeks. She had walked on a fractured foot for 8 weeks because she did not want to miss the launch. He pulled up a broader search. Human vessels and crews processed through neutral stations in the first 20 years of contact. 43 separate medical intake records. He ran a comparison filter: healed fractures, scar tissue, stress injuries listed as pre-existing. The results came back. 31 of the 43 records had at least one pre-existing injury in the crew. Not injuries from travel, old injuries, injuries from before they left. A broken hand, fully healed, but still showing density changes at the repair site. A shoulder, dislocated and reset more than once. Ribs, always ribs, in multiple records. The crew of one early exploration ship had a combined total of 22 healed fractures. Among 5 people, they had launched anyway, all of them. Civil stared at the number for a long time. Then he heard a knock at his open door. Davin was standing in the corridor. He had clearly slept for a few hours. There was a crease on the side of his face from a cushion. He was holding 2 cups of something from the dispenser. Saw the light under the door. He said, "You want one?" Civil looked at the cold green drink on his desk. "Yes," he said. Davin came in, sat in the patient chair, which he moved closer to the desk without asking, and handed Civil a cup, hot, brown, bitter smelling. He looked at the screens. Civil turned them so Davin could see. He pointed to the fracture comparison data and waited. Davin leaned forward and read it. He was quiet for a while. "Yeah," he said finally. "These are your first contact crews," Civil said. "People who chose to be the first humans in unknown space." 31 of 43 ships carried crew members with pre-existing injuries that any medical board would have flagged as grounds for delay. They didn't want to wait, Davin said. "Why not?" Davin thought about it. "Because waiting is how you miss the thing. There's always a reason to wait. Another launch window, another ship. Wait until you're healed. Wait until conditions are better." He turned the cup in his hands. "People who wait for perfect conditions mostly just keep waiting." Civil looked at him for a long moment. Then he opened a new document and began to write. Davin left in the morning. His ship had a departure window at the 7th hour, and he was the kind of man who arrived early without making a point of it. He had his jacket on, his small travel bag over one shoulder, and his bandaged arm moving freely. No stiffness, no favoring, just a clean sealed wound doing what wounds do when a body is working the way it should. Civil was waiting at the end of the docking corridor. He had his display pad under one arm and the slightly distracted look of someone who had not slept much but had gotten a great deal done. His skin light was a steady, clear pale gold, calm and even. "You didn't have to come down," Davin said. "I wanted to tell you the report is finished." Civil said, "The first complete physiological profile of a human conducted at this station. It will go to the Galactic Medical Institute by end of day. You will be cited as the subject." "I wanted you to know." "That's fine," Davin said. "The findings are significant." I believe it will result in a full review of how human biology is classified and taught in medical programs across the network. Davin nodded. He looked down the corridor at his ship, then back at Civil. Where do you go after a station like this? He asked. You move around? I have been at Oruruval for 6 years. I may stay longer. The work here is varied. Good station for that, Davin said. They stood there for a moment in the way people stand when a conversation is ending. But neither of them is quite done. Then Davin reached into his jacket pocket. It was a small thing he pulled out. Flat, round, worn smooth on both faces. Metal, clearly old, the design on it barely visible. Anymore, he held it out. Civil looked at it, then at Davin. It's from Earth, Davin said. Old Earth, before the unification period, back when different regions had their own currencies. Some people carry them. Habit mostly. Some say it's for luck. And you? Civil asked. Davin thought about it. I carry it because my grandfather gave it to me. He got it from his grandmother. He didn't know where she got it. He shrugged. But it made it all the way here. So. He held it out again. Civil took it. It was heavier than it looked. He turned it over in his long fingers, feeling the worn edges, the faint ghost of an image on one face, something circular, something with text around the rim that he couldn't read, but suspected had once been important to someone. He reached for his scanner, pure instinct, then stopped himself, but Davin had already seen the motion. Go ahead, he said. Civil scanned it. The result came back into seconds. Copper, tin, trace zinc, alloy consistent with manufacturing techniques from several centuries prior. The coin was somewhere between 200 and 300 years old. Civil looked at it again with that number in his head. You carry pieces of your history in your pockets, he said. Davin smiled. It was a real one, small, easy, not performed. Doesn't everybody? He picked up his bag and walked down the corridor. His boots were quiet on the floor. He did not look back, not because he was cold about it, but because he was the kind of person who moves forward without making a show of it. Civil stood at the end of the corridor and watched the dock bay door close behind him. He looked down at the coin in his hand, a piece of metal to 3 centuries old, carried across the known galaxy in the pocket of a man with iron in his blood and 14 healed, fractures and a wound on his arm that was already quietly continuing. Too close. He walked back to his office. He had a report to finalize. That the coin went on the corner of his desk, beside the scanner, where he would see it every time he looked up from his work. 3 weeks later, the report reached the Galactic Medical Institute on a Tuesday, an ordinary day, and landed on the desk of a junior researcher who flagged it urgent within 2 pages. The review board convened 3 days after that. 7 members, the most senior of them a Mirate elder named Vorus, who had been practicing medicine for 41 years. Vorus read the full document twice before the session began. He came in, sat down, and did not speak for 2 full minutes after everyone was settled. Then he said, "Has anyone else seen a human in person?" 2 of the 7 had. They talked about it for a while. At the end of the session, Vorus read the final paragraph of Civil's report aloud. Humans do not require a new threat category or a revised concern level. They require understanding. I recommend the database entry be updated with the following addition. Handle with the same respect. Extended to any species that has earned its place among the stars. But remember, this one earned it in a difficult environment, on a world that provided no easy conditions. And they arrived here still carrying the evidence of everything they survived. They will not mention it. They will not ask to be recognized for it. They will simply keep going. The room was quiet after that. Vorus set down his display pad. He looked out the window beside his seat, where a slow stream of ships moved in and out of the transit lane. Cargo haulers, medical transports, small private vessels carrying ordinary people toward ordinary destinations. Approved, he said. Recommended as required reading in all first contact medical training. He paused, update the file, and somewhere on a freight run 3 sectors away, Davin Cole was loading cargo in a station bay that smelled like metal and hydraulic fluid, and the particular kind of work that never completely ends. He had a new cut on his other hand, a small one, not worth mentioning. He He had wrapped it with cargo tape. He would get it looked at when he docked. It was not the problem. It never was. And for the first time, the galaxy understood that humanity's most extraordinary quality was not its strength, or its iron blood, or its dense, unbreakable bones, but this: they had survived everything the universe had thrown at them, and not one of them thought that was remarkable. They just thought it was Tuesday. If this story moved you, subscribe for more human stories from the stars.